Looks like we're about to head over to Modern. We're going to see Game 3, Benton Madsen. We have seen last round on Rakdos Scam, playing against Dave Shields, who is kind of a creativity main. If you've listened to his podcast with Jerry, that's the deck he's been on in Modern for a while. A deck that has been, uh, I would say, its threat level has been downgraded since Lord of the Rings. All of the good cards in Lord of the Rings pretty much are creatures and artifacts, and you can't add those to the creativity deck. The Lord of the Rings or the One Rings trigger keeps a turn of Archons off your back, and so kind of not as scary as it has been in the past, but still a very threatening deck. And I think that Scam a pretty good matchup for creativity generally.
We'll definitely have to see coming out 5 color creativity. The Archons non being legendary is something that I've lamented over in Legacy before. Is the 5 color creativity running anything fun or spicy, or are we just trying in for Archons of Cruelty here?
I believe, let me take a quick look at this list. All right. Sorry, I got to click over to it. Main deck, we've only got 3 Archon of Cruelty as the creatures. In the sideboard, there's an Emrakul, the Eon's Torn, and an Elesh Norn, Mother of Machines, that can be gotten. Elesh Norn really key. It allows primarily when you're playing against the 4 color Omnath deck, it allows a creativity on a ring turn. When your opponent casts the one ring, you that gives you an opening to cast creativity, but you can't trigger your Archons that turn. So your creativity is pretty bad. Once you've boarded in the Elesh Norn Mother of Machines, however, you can get a terrifying threat that is really difficult for the 4 color deck to deal with. I mean, they do have Teferis and prismatic endings, but it can create a pretty serious problem for your opponent. And with a couple of, uh, you know, you get that in a couple of Archons, and then that's a scary turn, even without the Archons getting their ETB triggers. So some options here, not going to be particularly relevant in this matchup, where creativity for any number of Archons of Cruelty generally puts the nail in the coffin against the Scam deck.
Elish Norn Mother Machines. That is a nasty trick there, boy.
When
That should,
you're
yeah.
when you when your deck is entirely composed of ETB effects on creatures, when it just like kind of finds its way into play on the creativity sides board, it's pretty gnarly. Um, but I think that in this matchup, kind of the important thing is that the creativity deck top decks very well, as long as it, for example, has a fetch land in play. Top decking a creativity is lights out, unless the Rakdos deck is managing to hold up some removal. So the ability to top deck after you've gotten your hand kind of shredded by griefs gives it an angle that a lot of decks in Modern just don't necessarily have that.
It does look like Pioneer is poking over as well. So this looks like the match life on this game 3 here, which is about as exciting as it gets.
Definitely. Although the game itself has not been the most exciting, we've pretty much just seen Ragavan come down and get killed. That's been the extent of it. Now we see this hard cast grief from Benton.
It's good because if we went on any longer, I'd have had to comment again on the quality of the lands in play. And as a lands player, that is kind of my focus. You know, what pretty land do I get to destroy with my wastelands? But grief here on the stack looks like.
One card that is super relevant against grief, one of the best cards that you can board in against Rakdos Scam, and a card that creativity generally has multiple copies of. Veil of Summer can come down, stop, draw a card, stop this from thought seizing Dave. But looks like just a lightning bolt to kill it in response to the trigger. And creativity, Dave knows that Benton is going to take that one because that would be game next turn.
That was a rather quick discard. When you have a namesake card, that is typically the discard, but 5 color creativity runs one transmogrify still, or is that dated now?
Generally not. Generally not very many transmogrifies in lists anymore. Just the inability to target an artifact is really brutal, and also it generally isn't going to work out. It's kind of the so it looks like yeah, our Pioneer match has been decided, so everything is kind of depending on this match now. Uh, I think that just got finalized. But yeah, no, generally no transmogrifies in Dave's deck. So one less really great top deck, but still some decent ones. If Dave ever hits a Fable, I think he feels like he's in really good shape. Uh, any of his planeswalkers would be nice here with nothing on Benton's side of the board to threaten them. Dave also has a couple of copies of Shadow Prophecy, which would be a huge hit here.
All right, engineered explosive coming down for Benton. Love that. Not necessarily rooting for Benton over Dave, just love the card in general, engineered explosives.
Yeah, that's going to insulate from a creativity regardless of X value. It'll take all the 0 mana cost permanents, non-land permanents off the board, so any tokens, and even like a little bit of value here in that one of Dave's good permanents is a 2/2 goblin that makes a treasure every time it attacks. So engineered explosives could answer that preemptively without a creativity being put on the stack. But the insulation here from a top deck creativity really, really important because our clock, Benton's clock, is not the fastest. We're giving Dave some time.
They're giving Dave some time, but Dave's caught being a 1/1. I do like seeing the secondary plan of a couple of decks come together. The 1/1 dwarf beatdowns. It would be a good way for a game to finish out.
I have been especially playing like combo decks like Living End, the dwarves just kind of coming in for free and then forcing you to do something about them or forcing you to act when sometimes the player who acts first kind of gets bitten. The dwarves are like very relevant and they also block Ragavans. Like any mid game Ragavan is just not going to get through the dwarves.
Not quite on the power level of the one that got banned, the Mystic.
Yes. Mystic Sanctuary, definitely punching above the weight class of the other ones in the cycle. Ren and 6 here, going to allow Dave to really make as many dwarves as he wants. That Leyline Binding, getting that Voidwalker off the board also means that this Ren and 6 is not currently being threatened by anything over on Benton's side of the table. This turn, with the Ren and 6 at 4, a Fury can come down, be hard cast, and kill it. That's a little bit scary if that taps Benton down so that he doesn't have engineered explosives up anymore, and then a creativity could get cast. But looks like not even that is happening. Ren and 6 just going to keep picking up lands, and then also once Dave gets up to 8 lands, Archon of Cruelty just hard cast becomes something that is another excellent top deck for Dave. So the longer this game goes on, the scarier things get for Benton.
Definitely. When it comes to engineered explosives for 0 versus a card like Ratchet Bomb for 2 with no pay to activate cost, for a red black deck, what is 1 and 2 drops in the format that flowed the board that Benson might be pulling in EE over?
Well,
Uh,
there's a number of just like kind of creaturey decks. I don't know if you bring in EE against Yawgmoth exactly. You might. That could be a possibility. It's just kind of a. I mean, Engineered Explosives is just a better card than Ratchet Bomb, right? Like it just solves more problems. If you feel like you want it against Murktide to kill Ragavans and Dragon's Rage Channelers, that's an option for you. I'm not the most experienced with Rakdos Scam and exactly what you want to sideboard it with, but engineered explosives, like Ratchet Bomb, would be mostly a card that's like hard targeting creativity, which is a kind of not a great use of a sideboard slot. Engineered explosives, however, can be good against a lot of things. I guess Hammer would be the big one. That's like this is a very important card versus Hammer, and Ratchet Bomb is not where you want to be versus Hammer.
Gotcha. Definitely could see that being too slow. The ability to tick up, especially on things like the Ratchet Bomb or like a Blast Zone, is something that has, made some great stories for Magic, destroying Murktides, Emrakuls, Omniscience with a potential Blast Zone is noteworthy.
I think we're seeing why creativity is considered not a great matchup for Scam here. Dave's not drawing particularly well. He's not drawing any of his big punishing haymakers. He drew a 2 mana planeswalker, but just making land drops, making dwarfs, threatening Benton, and Benton's cards are just not really strong enough to really get there from here. I think he's hoping for maybe a Blood Moon at some point to stop this from happening. But Dave's got a basic planes in play. He's got an abundant growth, so he has mana. So Blood Moon wouldn't even have been good a while ago. And now Dave's got up to 8 mana and is casting Archon of Cruelty.
Archon of Cruelty is a beater, and the Orcish Bowmaster in hand, dealing one back for the 3 he takes, is not really what I want from Benton's seat.
Yeah, I'd take that deal 10 times out of 10 if I'm Dave.
Certainly. And I guess if your backup plan beater that you cast is a flying 6/6 drain 3 draw a card, your opponent also discards a card and sacks a creature. That's not a bad backup plan. I'd rather seen the dwarves cross the finish line, but this looks pretty strong here from Dave.
Yeah. I think Benton has to cast the Bowmasters in response here, take out these dwarves, and, you know, you sacrifice an army to the triggered ability, but then you get another army from the triggered ability, so it, kind of is the same. But he is also going to discard the last card in his hand,
It looks
or
like he's
I
been
guess he
holding
has a
on
few
to a
cards in his hand.
swamp, so I think that's all right.
All right, looks like he's explosives away the dwarves, is casting a Bowmasters, and maybe I don't believe he has a removal spell for the Archon.
Not currently, but with his second Bowmasters in play, and he's trying to glow up an army so that way he can.
I'm not sure what's going on with that. Somebody's reading the Archon. All right, but it is in play.
Maybe some question over the sequencing of when the orc army arrives on the sacrifice a creature, draw a card function. Do
Possibly.
you?
We didn't see the card draw or the discard from Benton, so that ability is perhaps the Archon is on the stack, perhaps the ability is on the stack. I'm not sure exactly where we are. Um, maybe asking if you can sacrifice the Bowmaster and still get a trigger because he wants to get the army as big as possible.
Yeah, and it does look like that's possible with the thing. Oh, it does not work.
No, that's you sacrifice the creature first, so the Bowmaster would not see the card draw happen if you did.
But the Thane Death will bring it back with a 2 power.
But now this Archon not only is just in play, and if Dave gets an attack with it, Benton is basically dead. It's also there as a blocker to protect this red and 6, protect Dave's life total. Want to be a little careful with it. Don't want Benton to be able to put together like a Bowmaster ping and a lightning bolt to finish it off.
Yeah, Benton swinging in here with the team. I didn't get a good look. It appears like a fiery impulse, maybe instead of.
Probably not a fiery impulse, but so the thing that Dave is thinking about here is Fury, and you don't want a Fury to finish off your Archon. And since both those bodies are 2/2s, you just kind of don't want to block. So then Seasoned Pyromancer was the red card.
A little bit better than Fiery Impulse.
Yes.
Uh, just the little bit of external there. I mean, draw 2, cycle away, terminate here off the top.
Yeah, and does not look like it. He would not pass the turn if he had the Terminate because of the existence of cards like Veil of Summer. And so Dave gets an attack with this Archon. Unless things get pretty weird from here, I don't believe he's going to be losing this game.
With the drain 3 on this Archon for 6, Dave gets an attack, and that is just game over.
If as long as our life totals are correct here, yeah, Benton does not have a removal spell. That was pretty clear. You would not have passed the turn with Terminate and let Dave untap his lands. So it looks like the team of Jerry Thompson and the Shields brothers is going to be victorious in this one. Creativity just kind of like easily able to play that long game when Rakdos was not able to put on a hard clock, was only able to do a little bit of disrupting, and then we just kind of traded cards 1 for a while, and then Creativity had much better top decks as the game went on. Dave barely drew anything good. You know, he drew Ren in 6, that let him make land drops, and then he was able to play an Archon, but that was plenty.
Funny indeed. With a deck name like Scam, it's unfortunate to draw that half of your deck, but that's what you get for playing the turn 1 discard 2 4/3 menace last round. So
Yeah, you live by the scam, you die by the scam. Sometimes you don't get those hands that you need, and when the modern deck is as scary as Creativity, then it's when you don't get it, then you kind of get beaten up. We're gonna go back to Anurag in the booth. Thanks for sticking with us, and we will be back afterwards with round 7.